Building RAG systems is really tricky. In this channel, I've covered a couple different ways of building it, including some webinars, and we've also talked about it a great deal in some shorts and videos through all the different developer advocates on this channel. But today we're launching something new at Cloudflare that makes it extremely easy to build a RAG system from scratch, called AutoRAG. AutoRAG has all of the tools that you need to get started building a RAG system directly from an R2 bucket. All you have to do is connect an R2 bucket, some configuration settings, and then at the other end, you're going to get a built-out AI system for querying those documents in just a couple minutes. Today, I'm going to show you how to get started with AutoRAG in just a couple minutes. We just announced it as part of Cloudflare's 2025 Developer Week, and we can't wait for you to give it a try. Let's jump into the code and take a look at how it works. So to get started, I'm going to go to the AutoRAG section in my sidebar under the AI tab. I'm going to create a new AutoRAG here and get started with the default settings. So in order to create a new AutoRAG, we have to connect a data source. So right now we support R2 buckets, but in the future, we'll also support web crawlers as well as D1 databases. So you can see I have some R2 buckets here, but what I'm going to actually do is go and create a new bucket just for this project. Now I'll just call this AutoRAG docs, and I'll just select the automatic location. That's fine for now. And once I've created that, I need to drag some documents inside of there. So let me go and get some from my computer and add them into this R2 bucket. So I'm here on the Finder on my computer, and what I'm going to do is grab about 40 blog posts from my own personal website. They're all written in the MDX format, which is just Markdown, and I'm going to click and drag those here into my R2 bucket. It's going to include things like my year in review, an introduction to Astro's content system, all sorts of stuff that I care about that I've written about on my personal blog. So I've uploaded that, and now hopping back here into the AutoRAG section, I'm just going to search for AutoRAG, and you can see that the AutoRAG docs bucket pops up here, so I'm going to go ahead and select that and say Next. Now this is where we'll generate indexes for your AutoRAG system. So by default, there's a Smart Default option here, as well as some other models that we support. Now by choosing Smart Default, what this means is that in the future, as, say, new models come out, Cloudflare can automatically adjust your model in order to sort of fit your data into whatever the sort of cutting edge model is for generating vectors. In this case, we're using the BGE M3 model, and you can see down here it has the specific details about what will be created inside of Vectorize, which is our vector database. So it'll have a modality of text, it'll have a dimension of 1024, and it'll use the cosine metric. And down here in the chunking section, I can even set up how it will chunk my information inside of my R2 bucket. So this is something that we actually haven't covered in past videos on RAG on this channel. Initially, we built a really basic sort of take everything inside of a document, convert it, and dump it into Vectorize, but we didn't look at things like chunking, which basically takes larger files and chunks them into smaller portions. This is super important, and it makes a RAG system perform a lot better. And so it's great to see something like this built in to AutoRAG. I'm going to pick the default settings. I think they'll work great, but if you want to kind of go and research how different parts of this work, you obviously can do that, and you can change things like the chunk overlap or the chunk size as needed. Now, the next thing here is configuring retrieval and generation. So there are a lot of different models here. If you've checked out any of Cloudflare's AI functions, you know that we have a ton of different models here. Again, I'm going to go with the Smart Default option, but there's things like different versions of Llama here. There's our DeepSeek distilled model that we've talked about on this channel. All sorts of different options here. But for now, I'm going to go with this 3.3 Llama Instruct model, which I think will work great for my use case. We also have the ability to connect an AI gateway. So if you haven't used AI gateway before, it's our complete solution for doing analytics and filtering for AI LLM products. So what this means when I say create one for me is every request that goes into my AutoRAG system is going to go through AI Gateway. We're going to get information like analytics on succeed, failed responses, how long does it take, and we can also do things like cache responses and all sorts of nice built-in features with this continually evolving product. I'm going to say create one for me, obviously, and then here at the bottom, you can see there's all sorts of these sort of advanced options for things like query rewriting. So you might want an LLM to rewrite your query to improve how it retrieves things from your RAG indexes. So what this will allow me to do is use the LLM to rewrite whatever query I'm giving it in order to better fit this retrieval process. This is some advanced functionality that will make your RAG work better. Retrieval configuration, kind of how it sounds, configures how the retrieval will work. So things like maximum number of results, the match threshold, so I can have it match things in a stricter way. And then finally, semantic caching, which allows me to define how caching works in this RAG system. By default, this is strong, and we might change that to be exact. Maybe we only want near identical matches, or we want loose. Let's just kind of look through the entire index and get whatever looks even somewhat similar. For now, I'll go with strong similarity. And finally, we're getting very close to creating our AutoRAG system. I'm going to give this a name of Christian blog posts RAG. And then I'm going to use this create token button here to automatically create a token for my AutoRAG. So this will allow me to create and access resources in my account, such as a vectorized database, an AI inference model. All this stuff will be taken care of using this API token. And then finally, I'm going to click create. Now it's time to actually take a look at our AutoRAG system. So you can see by default, there's a lot of information here on this page that makes it clear how our AutoRAG system is working and all the sort of downstream things that are being produced as part of this system. So for instance, we can see in my source here, which is this R2 bucket, there are 41 objects. From those 41 objects, there was 453 vectors created from those objects into a vector database. And then this AI gateway here is our default gateway, which we created as part of this process. The index here shows that we have 0 queued, 41 successful, and 0 errors. Taking a look at these index logs, we can see that there is all the different files that have been indexed inside of the system. Let's open up Cloudflare Workflows, which is a blog post that I wrote about Cloudflare Workflows when it came out. You can see the data was created, the type, size, as well as any custom metadata or an object preview. All of this information tells us how our system is working. We can pause indexing if we would like, and we can also click this manual sync button here to go and manually sync the new objects that we may have put inside of the bucket. And then finally, this use AutoRAG button. So if we click that, we can see there is a couple different ways to access this AutoRAG system. The first of which is using Cloudflare Workers. So we can create a new Workers project, we can set up this AI binding, and then we can do things like search inside of this AutoRAG using AI or search directly. So this one kind of uses a query rewriting to make our query work a little bit better. Well, this one is direct search. And then we can also do a test query here and see what that would look like. So I'll just say, how do I get started with Cloudflare workflows? And this is an example of what the code would look like when you paste it inside your application. So you can see there's this new AI.AutoRAG where we pass in a name here, and this one is called Christian Blog Posts RAG, and then we can search that and get results back. That's great when you want to actually introduce it inside of a Workers application. We also have the API version of this, which uses a very similar format. It's just a URL for our AutoRAG that we've set up, and then you can pass in a query here as well as an authorization token. But what if we want to look at this directly inside of the UI? Well, if we come back here, we can see that there's a playground section where we can actually query this directly. So I'm going to give it a question here. I'll say, how do I get started with Cloudflare workflows? And what it's going to do here is first rewrite the query into something that makes a little bit more sense for querying this RAG. And then it's going to use the generation model here, this Llama 3.3. And you can see really quickly, it already gets started returning responses here. Now, how is this working? Well, we can assume because I have this Cloudflare Workflows blog post, it is going and getting that information and using it to derive how to provide these instructions. And you can see it says for more information, you can check out the Workflows documentation, which I would imagine I probably linked to in my blog post, as well as the Cloudflare Workflows MDX document. So that's kind of this AI query version of it. If we switch over to the search version, we can see what it looks like to go and get the direct results back from this AutoRAG. So you can see 4 things were returned. One is the Cloudflare Workflows blog post, which has a score of 0.7. So just based on the score of similarity, this is easily the most relevant. Though interestingly enough, there were 3 other blog posts that came up. One is a very old one that I wrote on serverless. One on Grok, X's AI solution, and then another one on a DIY error monitor, which I believe uses Cloudflare workflows under the hood. So pretty interesting to see the number of results that come back. This search endpoint, of course, is more for understanding which files or which sources are getting matched. And this search with AI is your kind of traditional, let's go and query something and transform it back using a smart AI model. So both of these are available, which is great. And either one is a good solution for going and querying this AutoRAG. Now, the last thing we'll do is take a look at the settings page. So you can see this is all of the information that we defined when we set up the AutoRAG system. So things like query rewriting, retrieval, embedding. The last thing I want to show you is this AI gateway. So with AI gateway, by default, you're going to get logs for all of the requests that are being made. So you can see, for instance, this is when we went and made a request to this embeddings model using a query rewrite. So Cloudflare Workflows Tutorial Guide, Getting Started, Setup Configuration. It just generated a bunch of interesting text here in order to help with the query. And then it also went and called this Llama 3.3 model, where it said, you are a helpful AI assistant specialized in answering questions. It looks like it also embedded the document here. So document name, Cloudflare Workflows. It provided a lot of the text from this blog post in that message. And then the final message was my query itself. How do I get started with Cloudflare Workflows? So all of this stuff is available. All the logs for everything going through your AutoRAG system is set up by default, which is awesome. In the same way, we also have analytics. So you can see the number of requests here really picked up as I started to use this AutoRAG system. You can see the number of tokens that are being used, as well as any sort of cache information. So in this case, they were a cache miss. But if we go and use this more in a production system, we would start to see, ideally, those cache rates go up. So I hope you find this AutoRAG system really interesting and useful. I'm really impressed by it. It's one of those things where it is, look at all the things that we don't have to do, right? We went and set up this RAG system in previous videos. We wrote a whole bunch of code to take things, generate embeddings, put them inside of a vectorized database. And with AutoRAG, all of that is figured out for us. We just point it at an R2 bucket. It goes and grabs all those objects, generates the vectors that are needed. And all we have to do is just drop in this AI binding call here to query our AutoRAG system. It's really that simple. I hope that you found this useful and interesting. I, for one, am really excited to keep building stuff with AutoRAG and not have to implement my own custom systems anymore for this. It's a really awesome ship from the Cloudflare AI team. Let us know what you think in the comments if you have a chance to try it out. We'd love to hear what you're building with it. Thanks so much, and see you in the next video.